After a disappointing season in Ann Arbor, it looks like Michigan and Sharon Moore have their quarterback for next season. Billy Edwards has received a crystal ball to Michigan, the former Maryland quarterback, 6'4", solid arm, a guy who they went 4-8 this year, but at the end of the day, 65% completion percentage, 2,881 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, and someone who has an intriguing skill set just watching the film. And you understand Michigan should be pretty strong in the trenches. Surround him with some good talent there. Looks like this is a bridge type of situation. Of course, Bryce Underwood, so much has been made about his flip from LSU to Michigan in the last few weeks here. A lot of big money people getting involved in that one, obviously. But it should be interesting to see how this situation plays out, considering Edwards is probably not taking this job unless he feels like he has a really good shot to be the starter.
Yeah, and Underwood, obviously, there's so much to be excited about with that player. Number one player in the country. He's been a phenom since he was a young kid. You've heard about him for so many years. But when you really study Billy Edwards and what he did in Maryland, he is a classic Big Ten quarterback and a major upgrade over what Michigan had last year. 6'4", 219. He just looks big and physical like a Big Ten quarterback should look. He's got a solid arm. He could throw it in the cold weather. Obviously, he's used to the cold weather. He played in Maryland. He's in the Big Ten already. So there's no adjustment to the competition level, to the style of play. Originally from Virginia, signed with Wake Forest, transferred to Maryland, played behind Talia Tagovailoa, who was one of the top quarterbacks in Maryland history. But Billy Edwards still found his way onto the field. He rushed for 13 touchdowns in that specialist role. He does have athleticism. You see him elude rushers in the pocket. Okay, he's not a super athletic guy where he's not Lamar Jackson we're talking about here, but this is a guy with a 4.4 shuttle in high school, verified. So he can move side to side. Again, he's a big guy, so that's a good number for a bigger quarterback like this. He has strength. He's not a guy that you're just going to be he's not going to be a stationary target if you're in the pocket. He can elude guys. He can throw. Look at his stats last year, 65% passer, 2,881 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks. Not bad, but the team struggled 4-8, and it was not a dynamic, explosive passing game. Much more of a dink and duck style with Billy Edwards, 6.9 yards per attempt. Watching the film, big body, good arm. He really likes those in-breaking routes, slants, digs. He can throw those with zip. As far as stretching the field more, maybe it was the talent. He did have, some talent at Maryland, one of the top receivers in the country with Felton, but Michigan, you could assume, is going to be able to bring better players around him. We'll see how the portal ends up here. Obviously, the passing game was anemic last year. Davis Warren, Michigan's highest-rated passer, his top passer on the season, finished 17th in the conference in passing yards. Billy Edwards finished 3rd. So just apples to apples, Big Ten performance last year. Billy Edwards, 3rd in the Big Ten in passing yards. Davis Warren, of course, in a competition with Alex Orchard, since announced his transfer, he finished 17th. So if Billy Edwards was on Michigan last year, in 2024, I think this is a 9-10 win team with the talent they had on defense. That's the difference that I think Billy Edwards makes on this ball club. MVP of the Music City Bowl last year without Talia. He's played. He's experienced. He's got traits. Obviously, you're looking at a bridge quarterback to Underwood, but he might be a little more than that. He might be a guy that you say, man, this guy's on an NFL roster for 5 years, and we looked at him like an afterthought because we were so excited about this number one player in the country. Very interesting situation developing there in Michigan.
And I alluded to Bryce Underwood, all the hype about him, of course, number one overall player in the country at quarterback, huge flip for them from LSU. And you look at the talent here. It's going to be very tough to keep this guy off the field. I see a potential situation developing with how you saw at Florida this year. DJ Lagway, Graham Mertz coming into the year really solid with some NFL prospects as a late round guy. Of course, beginning of the year did not start so great for the Gators. Lagway works himself in there. Mertz gets hurt, out for the year, and then Lagway takes over, and Florida has the end of the season that he had. And that the talent was evident, right, as soon as he stepped on the field. I'm wondering if there could be something like that plays out here with Underwood and Billy Edwards.
great comp because that was not a bad situation for Florida with Mertz. I mean, Mertz was a quarterback with NFL looks. He may still have those looks. Obviously, he got injured, but I like that comp. What's interesting to me is usually when you have a younger quarterback like this, you say, well, you can get him in packages. Now, Bryce Underwood can run, as you see on these highlights. He's a passing quarterback, but he does have running ability. You see that move there in the open field, able to cut without losing speed despite that 6'4" frame and those long strides. So you say, okay, well, he's a runner on top of his throwing, so we'll work him in these short yardage situations. But Billy Edwards is actually a great short yardage runner himself. So I wouldn't necessarily pull Billy Edwards for Bryce Underwood to run. Now, if Bryce Underwood's the better passer, that's a different story. But I mean, just big picture, if you're Michigan, last year, your quarterback battle, Davis Warren, Alex Orji. Now you're talking about Billy Edwards potentially, if this crystal ball goes to fruition, it sounds like it will, and Bryce Underwood. The room has been elevated to such a degree. And yes, you lose 3 first-round picks at a minimum with Will Johnson, and the 2 defensive tackles. So that's not a great start, but you've been recruiting well on defense. You had the number 9 ranked recruiting class in the country this year, which for Michigan, which doesn't get all the highest rated players, gets blue chippers, but evaluates them very well and develops them. 9th is right there where Michigan wants to be in recruiting. Of course, the big win over Ohio State. It's 7-5, but it's a 7-5 with an arrow up.
Yeah, like you said, definitely a better situation for Coach Moore to deal with at quarterback this year or next year coming up compared to this past season. So excited to see how the Wolverines bounce back, and that should be an interesting situation to track up there. So